President Trump was set tonight to address the country with Fox, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox News, and CNN all carrying the speech live. So either we're at war with Venezuela or there are some exciting new updates about the ballroom.
That's why they're known as rectal apertures. Rectal apertures. That's the late night people. Not very funny, but at least they're paid a lot of money. Yeah, they're going to blow up that ballroom. They're really Al-Qaeda. They're the Taliban. They call themselves the Democrat Party. They're really not democratic at all. Well, a very good Thursday, too, and welcome for another heapin' helpin' of our humble radio broadcast, the Chris Plant Show, from our nation's capital, the studios of WMAL in Washington, D.C. What a day it is. You see, a nice lady, a grandmotherly lady working at a Target store. You know, Target, Target. Nice grandmotherly woman hanging clothing on a rack at a Target store. It's a great store. Has all kinds of stuff. And a liberal white woman, a liberal Democrat white woman, decided to come up and verbally assault a grandmotherly Target employee while she was doing her job. Because she was wearing, the grandmotherly Target employee was wearing a Charlie Kirk T-shirt, a red one, so she's identifiable as a Target employee across the room and everything. And she's busy with a rolling rack and loading the shelves. And a Democrat woman, you know, these Democrat white women, they call themselves liberals. They're the scourge of Western civilization at this point in history because of the Democrat Party. But this liberal Democrat woman came up to the grandmotherly Target employee and started cursing her out and using words that I can't use here, but the usual assortment of Democrat curse words, with the four-letter words and the F and the this and the that, and started chewing the woman out. And the nice lady, the grandmotherly employee at Target, couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been sweeter, more charming. And the liberal Democrat lady just kept cursing out the grandmother and calling her names and calling her terrible things. And it's turned into an interesting kind of a Rorschach test, part of our culture that is the Democrat Party, going around being vile and vulgar and creepy and hostile and picking fights everywhere they go. You know, Hillary Clinton's slogan is, "There is only the fight. There is only the fight." Tells you everything you need to know about her. She's a lot of laughs. Nobody wants to hang out with her, especially her husband. But it turns out that the lady, the cursing lady, she works for a medical company. No Democrats want to gun her down on the sidewalks of New York or anything because she's one of them. She's a vulgarian of the first order. But the medical company, I think it's a California medical company that she works for, they say they've received more than 6,000 angry emails because the video went. And it's the cursing lady that posted. She made the video of herself cursing out the grandmotherly lady, and she posted it on Al Gore's amazing internet, peace be upon him, and because she's proud of it. She's proud that she verbally assaulted this woman a grandmotherly woman in a vulgar fashion. So because she wanted to brag, she posted her own video online, and now the company is shaking their head and screaming, so what are we supposed to do here? Are we supposed to fire the lady? What are we supposed to do? And so the company's trying to figure it out. The nice grandmotherly lady was interviewed by a news outlet, and she was asked, well, this crazy Democrat lady, should she be fired from her job? And I've got that story because it's a wild story. It got me going this morning, I've got to say. These wackadoodles, these Democrat Party lunatics, they've created a kind of a vile, violent, vulgar, that's 3 V's, isn't it? Death cult, vile, violent, vulgar. They really are. And they're what are they? They're SMIDs, severely mentally ill Democrats. SMIDs. It's the SMID movement. Severely mentally ill Democrats. You know how they love acronyms and abbreviations. So I turned that one into an acronym for them. Isn't that great? But that's not the big story of the day, because the big story is that President Trump addressed the nation last night. And it was remarkable in many ways, I've got to say. First of all, I don't think he deviated from the teleprompter once. I think he stuck to the prompter the whole time, which may have never been done before by President Trump in any circumstance. And it was, 19 minutes? He came in under 20 minutes. I had predicted 55 minutes. I really had. And I was wrong. And I'm here to admit it. I was wrong. I predicted 55-minute speech, predicted that he would deviate from the teleprompter frequently, that he'd spend a lot of time talking about Venezuela and blowing up the fast boats being operated by the drug cartels. Chuck Schumer has joined. Which cartel has he joined, Michael? Is that the Tren de Aragua cartel? I think it is, out of Venezuela. The Democrat Party, they'd shoot your children for a free ticket any place. They're Democrat Party. They're not a civilized organization at 2025 AD. They don't want to call it AD either, because they're against Western civilization and Christendom. They really are like a radical Islamic jihadi terror organization. And they will do it. They've already. Who was it? We had a Democrat member of Congress a week ago or so saying that when he's running for Congress, and when he's elected, he will tear down that ballroom because he's a mentally ill, violently, criminally insane, Taliban-like kind of run-of-the-mill Democrat. And we played that lunatic for you. They're nuts. They're completely nuts. But President Trump's big speech last night was great. He did point out that the Biden administration and the Democrats are responsible for so many horrors ongoing in the world today, because they're not liberals, they're the left. Isn't that amazing? But one of the headlines, Fox News, Trump announces special Christmas gift for military troops. What other kind of troops are there for troops? And this is pretty great. All members of the United States military will apparently, allegedly, reportedly, before Christmas, and we're getting pretty close. It's the 18th of December now. Yesterday was one of my brother's birthdays. Growing up, my birthday has always been December 12th every year. Same thing comes around. My brother Patrick, his birthday every year, December 13th. And another brother who will remain anonymous, December 17th. Always had, growing up, 6 boys in the household, 3 boys with our birthdays in the same week, December 12th, December 13th, December 17th, and then Christmas just around the corner. We used to make fun of our aunts and relatives and stuff and say they, buy you 1 shoe on your birthday. And then, oh, good, Aunt Mary, will I get the 2nd shoe on Christmas? We'd make fun of that. Never actually happened, but we'd always make fun of our relatives. One glove, because it's wintertime in Chicago, and 1 glove for your birthday and your 2nd glove at Christmas. We'd, make fun of we had a lot of step relatives, too. We had step relatives. It's a little different because of, complicating factors. But again, President Trump last night, Trump in White House speech announces $1,776 bonus for U.S. troops. How about that? As he says, economy is strong. The New York Times was very angry about everything. CNN, they had that communist, Van Jones. Does he still openly identify as a communist, or just, in the sleeping bag at night with a flashlight? I'm a communist. Pretty amazing stuff. The New York Times very angry. They have a Twitter account. They haven't been banned. Breaking news, : They love their colons in the New York Times, and everyone else's too. The Trump administration plans to ramp up efforts to strip some naturalized Americans of their citizenship. Internal documents obtained by the New York Times show, marking an aggressive new phase in President Trump's immigration crackdown. It's an illegal immigration crackdown. It's like the New York Times reporting that the government's cracking down on driving, when in reality they're cracking down on drunk driving. See, illegal immigration is not just immigration, and illegal immigrants are not just immigrants. they're illegal. See, the key word matters. It's a modifying adjective, and it changes the word immigrant very significantly. But isn't that amazing? And it turns out a lot of people in the United States, invited in by the Democrats who are, jihadis and genocidal anti-Semites and gang members and drug traffickers and child sex traffickers, that the Democrats want more of all of those things for themselves, for their spouses. Do they have spouses? Some of them do. But it turns out a lot of people, like that jihadi at Columbia University, They lie on their visa applications, on their citizenship applications, and then you find out that they lied about all these things and they're really jihadis. And President Trump said, we should be taking a look at this because the Democrats opened the floodgates, opened the doors, waved in every jihadi, every gang member, every mentally ill, crazy person. And so President Trump and the Trump administration looking at revoking citizenship of people that lied and lied and lied on their citizenship applications and the process and the visas. And the Democrats call you a racist, and then they kill 40% of the black babies in America all year long once again. And they're the party of slavery and Jim Crow and the KKK and shooting Martin Luther King and killing him. The Democrat Party. They're the party of blocking black kids from schools and a Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas, Democrat Governor Orville Faubus, and University of Alabama, Democrat Governor George Wallace, and George Wallace campaign volunteer that shot and killed Martin Luther King. And all of that has been scrubbed from their official record because they took over academia long ago, and the New York Times, of course. So the first draft of history is corrupt, and then the second draft of history is corrupt, and they've scrubbed their records of their actual records, and I'm here to point it out, just telling you. Speaking of dim-witted Democrats, Brown University. Have you been following this woman who's the president of Brown University? She is, it would be generous to say, not impressive. Not impressive. Her intellect does not dazzle. I think that she might be a DEI hire based on genitalia, and they don't know what gender is, but I think it might have had something to do with it. But it's a remarkable thing. It turns out she is paid, according to reports now, $3.1 million a year to be the president of Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. And I guess you need a yacht on the water next to the mansions of Providence, but isn't that amazing? $3.1 million a year. And a heck of a job, real good job there at Brown University where that mass shooting took place. How many days ago? Because there's still no suspect. They're not looking for anybody. They just said, hey, we found some video from a Ring doorbell camera from some woman's house that lives 2 blocks off campus. And that's the crack police work we have going on in Providence, Rhode Island, and at Brown University. Pretty remarkable stuff. But here's a funny thing that the conservative treehouse is reporting today, and the New York Times is not. Brown University received a letter from 34 so-called human rights groups in August, months ago now, requesting that they disable their closed-circuit TV systems on campus because it was an invasion of privacy and a violation of their First Amendment rights because they're chanting, death to the Jews, we are Nazi Germany rising. What were they? They're pro-Palestine, free Palestine from the river to the sea. And they 34 left-wing groups that call themselves human rights groups. Really, they're for transgenderism in Ouagadougou, and then they declare themselves to be human rights groups because they found 4 lunatics living under a log that they want to defend, so they're a human rights group. Yeah, but they demanded 34 of them, different so-called human rights groups that aren't human rights groups at all, demanding that they disable their closed-circuit TV system on campus. And then we learned the mass shooting took place, and the police chief and everybody else, they say, well, we don't really have any video. We have what we gave you. It's a Ring doorbell camera from, a grandmother living down the street. Isn't that amazing? Oh, and did you hear about the police chief there? There they call him the Pifa Chalice. They call him the Pifa Chalice. And it turns out his nephew was sentenced to 22 years in prison because he was running the largest fentanyl operation in the state of Rhode Island. And he's the Pifa Chalice. Isn't that great? Just wonderful. Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is very unwell. Also, I told you yesterday about and maybe the day before also, the MIT professor, Massachusetts Gesundheit Institute of Technology, Professor Nuclear Things, who was gunned down, murdered in his own home. And the word today is, days later, ABC News, no obvious suspects or theories, sources say. I'm thinking there might be a grinder element to this. There might be. AOC said that she would stomp J.D. Vance in a 2028 presidential election. AOC, she should be their candidate for president. They really, the severely mentally ill Democrats, the SMID movement. Man, oh, Manischewitz. I've got an update for you on Dan Bongino. And, we got Eric Swalwell. We've got all kinds of wildness for you today. Pretty much all of it thanks to Democrats. 888-630-9625. All right, so much going on, and we got that Nick Reiner who murdered his parents. You know how much video they have of that guy? Michael and I were talking about this morning. Everywhere Nick Reiner went, he goes to a gas station, he walks across a parking lot, he gets a soda pop at a store. They got video of him everywhere. But nothing of the mad gunman at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. And that's what happens when lefties are in charge. Nothing makes sense. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Richard calling from the Hoosier State. Hoosier Daddy from Indiana. Richard, you are on the Chris Plant Show.
Thanks, Chris, for taking my call. I talked to you a couple weeks ago. I have this Brown University situation. It seems to me that follows the same pattern as the pipe bomber on January the 6th. The investigation, the FBI run, Democrats run the FBI, and it seems like the Brown University Police Department is on the far left, and everybody involved, they won't let the FBI come in. And all of the interviews, I think, they got so much evidence that I don't think they're following up on it. What do you think?
Well, I've got to say, there's no impressive display of police work going on here, right? The mad gunman is still on the loose. They claim, although they have hundreds and hundreds of video cameras on the campus, like, well, we've given you everything we have, and it's some lady's doorbell camera from blocks off of campus, and they claim, and here's some other guy. And, first they got a person of interest, and then they don't. They lost interest in that guy, like a high school girl, and they let him go. And then they've got this video here of a fat guy with a big old belly and a funny two-tone jacket, and that's all they got. And I got to tell you, Richard, everything has gone wrong with this. Well, it is the Christmas season. It's the Christmas season. So white liberal women are out there cursing out grandmotherly employees at Target stores. This woman looks like she could be Mrs. Santa Claus. Mrs. Claus, the wife of Santa Claus. And I have the audio for you, and I want to play this for you. And the woman, the cursing woman, and she's really something, this one. But I don't think she's in the Christmas spirit. I really don't. Before we get to the audio of that, let's go to another telephone call. Let's go to Mike calling from Ellicott City, Maryland. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
You betcha.
Hey, I speak for millions, I'm sure, but we appreciate what you do. You basically do give us a Sports Center-like, interpretation, which we all love, and love the Irish wit, too.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. That's great.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Yeah, one thing, with the rise of this white liberal woman that seems to be just constantly in our face, and it really manifested, I think, during COVID. But what we call them around my house is KGB, Karen Government Boobs, because either one, they work for the government, most of them are teachers, et cetera, or they've been indoctrinated by the government and the educational system. So you and I may have talked about this before, but I call them KGB. It kind of fits, obviously, because they're quasi-communist anyway. But kind of want to see get your thoughts.
That's fun. That is fun. I'm going to say, the Democrat Party has turned our country into a beep show every time you look up. And, look, they started with their mobs on the mall with their pink, expletive deleted hats, their knit hats that looked like a female body part, they say. And they were chanting that they had, famous people out there, Madonna and people, and they're chanting about how they want to blow up the White House. And they're all cheering, hundreds of thousands of people on the mall in Washington cheering about burning things down and blowing up the White House. And this is all endorsed by CNN and by MS-13, DNC, and ABC, and all the rest of them, and that the pink pea hats on the mall.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Madonna wants to blow up the White House because Donald Trump was in there, and that's all cutesy. And then Donald Trump was shot once and nearly shot a second time, and Congressman Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer, and Charlie Kirk was shot and killed by an assassin, and the Democrats are attacking ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement people. They're violent, they're anti-American, they're anti-civil society, and they've made it perfectly normal. In fact, they've made it fashionable, Mike.
Yeah, and they have the gall and even the confidence to videotape it, like as if they're doing the bidding of the government. Like, hey, look, I found one. You're like,
right.
This is really odd.
Well, and she knows, I think correctly, this lunatic, and I have her name and her place of employment and all that I want to get to. But they're convinced, and not incorrectly, that when it goes to the internet, that thousands or millions of Democrats will cheer her on and want to reward her for her cursing out Mrs. Santa Claus at a Target store for wearing a Charlie Kirk
like you
shirt.
Said, they don't understand irony.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't understand irony, and I tell you, we love what you do. Keep it up, man.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much. That's great. Irish wit. That is great. Yeah. My grandfather, who was in the radio business starting in 1924, not long after he came home from World War I, where he was killing Germans and stuff. In fact, I was rummaging around. We moved, my best girl and I, we moved into a new place earlier this year, and I'm still, I'm still not fully moved in and finding things here and there. But one of the things that I found was a relic from my childhood, in fact, from my grandfather's youth, because my grandfather was a doughboy in France in World War I, USGI, fighting the Germans, the Kaiser's boys, and Purple Heart recipient. And at the end of the war, my grandfather was assigned to a German prisoner of war camp. And I believe it was in northern France, but it was a German prisoner of war camp. And my grandfather, the end of hostilities, was assigned there, but with his rifle, to a what they then called a PW camp rather than a POW camp. And we're holding German military people there, right? And my grandfather, when I was a kid, he showed me a black and white photograph of himself in his uniform, I think sitting on a log or something in France, and it looked like things had calmed down a bit. But I have a number of pictures of him from World War I, going over on his troop ship and in uniform with General Pershing. Got a picture of my grandfather with General Pershing in uniform and all kinds of fun stuff. But in any case, the prisoner of war camp at the end of the war, where Germans are being held because we won and they lost. And my grandfather has a wooden, I think it's like rosewood frame that with a picture of himself in uniform. And it was explained to me as a child that this was carved by a German prisoner of war who was given sharp implements to carve wood with. And he made a frame. He hand carved a custom frame that he gave as a gift to my grandfather. And who put the black and white picture of him in the frame? I don't know if he put it in after the war or if the German had a picture of him and put it in. And the frame is signed on the back by the German, and it says PW period W period CO, like company or maybe camp 3. So a prisoner of war camp 3. and then it's signed by the German guy who carved the wooden frame. And I remember when I was 5 years old and my grandfather was explaining this to me, I said, where did he get the tools to carve this with? Because when I was 5 years old, I'm thinking, you don't want to give them weapons. They're Germans. And my father then fought in World War II, killing Germans in France again and all that. But remarkable. And so I unearthed this frame just the other day, and a wooden frame with my grandfather, and the back signed by the German prisoner who was given metal tools that he used to carve a wooden frame, which he used not to stab anybody in the neck and kill them, but to carve a wooden frame to give as a gift to my grandfather, who was a U.S. GI, holding him prisoner in a prisoner of war camp. And that's kind of a fun American story. Fun American, but I digress. And I do, and I have the frame at home. It's sitting on a counter now because I was looking at it the other day. I think I might have even photographed it. But it's a pretty cool American story and kind of an interesting German story, too. And I remember him saying, they weren't such bad guys. I remember him saying they weren't such bad guys. He had just finished fighting World War I, which was, they were the bad guys. And gas and trench warfare and massacres. It was crazy. And he said they weren't such bad guys. Pretty amazing. We are Americans. We're truly remarkable. Now let me get to the story that I was just talking about a minute ago. We've got so many Democrat stories. They can't get this guy who shot up Brown University in Providence, and that is a big and important story. And I was talking to Michael Piercy about this morning, and I was reminded of something. And I think it was Richard who was talking about Brown University and, comparing him to the pipe bomber of January 5th, January 6th, all those years ago. But I was reminded, we got this Brown University killer on the run, and they got a picture of a guy with a big belly wandering around. And they say, anybody know this guy? If I knew that guy, if I knew who he was, if I was related to him or I worked with him, I'd know who that guy was in a heartbeat. And it's kind of amazing that we don't have more on this. It's pretty crazy. It really is. But I remember it was the guy that shot and killed Charlie Kirk, and they finally put out photographs. And it was the guy's father that turned him in. I think this fat guy's father and his mother and his brother and his next-door neighbors and his coworkers can identify him from the photos that are out there. And I'm kind of surprised that we aren't further along on this. But what I was reminded of in talking to Michael Piercy this morning about this, and I mentioned a little while ago that Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., with whom my stepfather traveled and crossed the Pettus Bridge as a news reporter for CBS News for the Walter Cronkite thing. And my stepfather was brought into the coroner's office after Martin Luther King was killed and brought back, much to his surprise, to be with Martin Luther King's dead body on the slab. And that's a story he didn't tell for years and years and years. But setting that aside, James Earl Ray, who was a Democrat Party campaign volunteer for Governor George Wallace's Democrat Party campaign for the presidency, James Earl Ray had been volunteering for the Democrats, naturally, before he shot Martin Luther King and killed Martin Luther King on April 4th in that Memphis sky. Everybody remembers it because of the U2 lyrics, right? But James Earl Ray fled the scene. He was not captured on the scene. And in fact, he wasn't captured. Now, again, April 4th, he was shot. But James Earl Ray was caught June 8th. April, May, June 8th, 1968, was caught where? In London, England. Because James Earl Ray, who had shot and killed Martin Luther King after volunteering for the Democrats to help a Democrat become president, Democrat racist become president, James Earl Ray was arrested in London at Heathrow Airport on June 8th of 1968, months later, and he was getting ready to board a plane for Belgium, and he had a Canadian passport with fake information because it wasn't James Earl Ray's passport, it was somebody else's passport. It was a Canadian passport, not a U.S. passport. He wasn't in the U.S., he was in London. He was at Heathrow Airport getting ready to go to another country, Belgium, where he might have changed identities again. But we did catch him, and it's funny, I found a picture of him today. Being arrested, James Earl Ray, the Democrat, and they've got him in handcuffs, and they're escorting him away, and they've got him in a bulletproof vest, which were not very commonplace in 1968 in law enforcement. If you were in Vietnam, you might have had a flak jacket, but he's got a bulletproof vest. The police put him, James Earl Ray, in a bulletproof vest. And I pointed that out to Michael Piercy this morning, and I said, now, kind of unusual in 1968, police, bulletproof vest, not commonplace. So why do you think that is, Michael? And Michael rolled his lip and raised an eyebrow, and he said, oh, yeah, sure, because Jack Ruby, Jack Ruby had shot and killed the John F. Kennedy communist assassin, right, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was married to a Soviet woman named Marina, right, Marina, who's from Severodvinsk, and I've been to Severodvinsk on the White Sea, not to visit with Lee Harvey Oswald's widow. But you know that Lee Harvey Oswald's widow, last time I looked, is still alive and well and living in the United States with their two children. Well, not living together, but their two children are alive and well and living in the United States, too, last time I looked. And, you know, they did nothing wrong. But in any case, yeah, because Jack Ruby shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald, they put James Earl Ray in a bulletproof vest and handcuffs as they escorted him away. Pretty interesting stuff. All right, now I'm looking at the clock and what I've done to the clock, because I want to get to this. I want to get to this Target woman. They say being harassed, and I guess that's fair enough. But I'm not sure I want to go do that right now because I want to do it all in one piece. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it after the top of the hour, right? After the top of the hour. But it's remarkable stuff, and there's a lot to make fun of. There's this Democrat woman who's just a mental case and perfectly normal in Democrat Party circles. And I want to play that audio for you in full. And then the nice Mrs. Santa Claus, who's being cursed out by this Democrat white woman who calls herself a liberal, cursing her out for wearing a Charlie Kirk T-shirt. And, I mean, using every curse word in the book and attacking this grandmotherly woman. Just a lovely, cherubic, smiling, pleasant, grandmotherly woman who could play Mrs. Santa Claus in the play and the movie. And where do you see this? But I can't. There's good news out of this story too, and there literally is good news out of this story. And here's the good news: people are good. Not Democrats, not people that call themselves liberals, but people are good. And the end of the rainbow here. And that's got nothing to do with gender. At the end of the rainbow here, remember when rainbows were just like there was a pot of gold at the end, and instead of a monkeypox fest in a sleeping bag somewhere. But it turns out there is a happy ending, and that's got nothing to do with Korean massage parlors. Let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Greg calling from Rockville, Maryland. Greg, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
Love your show, as always. Real quick, Brown University, I've been there. Maybe you have too. It's really seedy, actually. It's not. I mean, the campus is okay, but the area around it just looks terrible. It looks like Tacoma Park, Maryland. These liberals, they just have, seedy bars and then pot shops. And I went there before pot was legal. I can only imagine how much it reeks and just smells now. And I was not impressed at all. I went to the University of Maryland, and I thought, that public university looked better than this so-called prestigious, Ivy University. So I'm not terribly surprised about this, the massive incompetence that's going on that you're documenting with this case. Also, wanted to give you a report from the ground in the People's Republic of Montgomery County. They've banned plastic bags starting January 1, plastic shopping bags. So I went to Harris Teeter in Olney. There's no plastic bags available for shoppers. This is what liberals do. So you have to get a brown paper bag, a flimsy one. That's your only choice, or you have to bring your own bag. And so this gentleman was like, where are the plastic bags? And they're like, well, they're banned January 1st. So he's putting this stuff in this brown paper bag. The brown paper bag breaks, and the handle breaks almost immediately. So how much food waste is going to be created because liberals in Montgomery County, these Democrats on the county council, want to ban plastic bags because they think it's saving the environment. They can't even clean up the streets that they have, and they want to invite the world into Montgomery County without addressing the environmental cost. Thanks so much for taking my call.
Yeah, man, thank you. Yeah, great call. Yeah, severely mentally ill Democrats, the SMID movement. It is a movement. Yeah, they love banning things. What they don't want to ban, they want to make mandatory. They're not liberals. They're the left. I sent along photographs of this World War I German prisoner of war camp frame, and perhaps we'll post those on what we laughingly call social media. Social media. Social media isn't. Too many Democrats. That's the problem. Let's go back to the telephones. And I look for it right after the top of the hour. I'm going to get to the nice grandmotherly lady working at a Target store when a Democrat Karen woman came in and cursed her out like, it's the Nuremberg trials. We'll get to that coming right up. Let's go to Matt calling from St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew, you are on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Matt.
Happy Thursday in Target-topia. And this Target story reminded me of when Michelle Obama, Big Mike, was mistaken for a Target employee, and she was just asked for help, nothing more. And her reaction was to, just whine about, what an affront it was to Her Majesty and, how racist everyone is. Contrast that with this lady who was cursed at. Michelle wasn't cursed at or anything. And just contrast the two reactions. And then speaking of Big Mike and the Obamas, she never did say what the plans were with the Reiners, whether it was dinner or something else. I think they were going to take them paddleboarding, but then Nick beat them to it, is what I think happened there.
That's the old paddleboarding. That's, the White House chef that was brought to their mansion on Martha's Vineyard who didn't know how to swim, but he took up paddleboarding as a hobby, and then he drowned. Nothing curious about any of that. Yeah, truly
That's
remarkable. Right. It's good to be a Democrat, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Hey, and, another thing with this Bondi Beach thing.
Yeah.
I think the left got excited when they heard that. They saw the name of the beach. They thought they were going to somehow be able to blame Attorney General Pam Bondi. But then when that fell through, they kind of resorted back to their old standby. It's the gun's fault. So. Right.
Yeah, it's not the jihad. It's not radical Islam. It's not anti-Semitism, which they're peddling here. And I had forgotten, honestly. I had forgotten all about the Michelle Obama Target store thing. Yeah, the only person that came up to her in her Target store was a woman who asked me to help her take something off a shelf. And clearly another demonstration of racism. Because she didn't see me as the first lady. She saw me as someone who could help her. And she was wrong about that, wasn't she, Big Mike? You weren't there to help anybody. You never have been. You're just on the take.